Ireland Alternative Timeline Season 3 Episode 4 Introduction to Voter Zero. Hello and welcome back to Political Talk, the podcast where I talk with the general public over political issues that they might want to concern me over. So let's go to the phones and begin. So first of all, we're talking with Jerry from I believe it's Down. So hello, Jerry. Hello. So Jerry, what exactly is your issue today? Well, my issue is all these rents that these rent caps are introducing. I mean, I own 4 properties across town, and I'm currently charging them about around 1% to 2% of what I pay at the property per month, and I just want to say this. This is disgraceful. I have to cut my rent in half, essentially. Well, Jerry, unfortunately, it's because your rents are... Well, no, my rents aren't... My rents are fine. No, Jerry, you see, let me say, Jerry, you see, let me explain. When you charge exorbitant rates for your property, that drives other people to charge more exorbitant rates. And what that means is the people who don't own houses, who are on Lake Yourself, and I understand, Jerry, you wouldn't understand, even people who didn't own property beforehand sometimes get burdened by the property book. Once they have property, suddenly they start charging mad because they don't seem to remember the difficulty and the level it is, mainly because the market keeps changing. Because we might be having this discussion today, Jerry, but by tomorrow, sure, if these caps aren't in place, the rent could increase by 1%, and by that time, people are earning less, and people are earning less, and people are earning less, and then, obviously, then they can't afford the rents, and then they're out on the streets, they're homeless. That's the thing, Jerry. Do you want people to be homeless? And that's the thing, because if people are homeless, you know what happens, Jerry? Your tax goes up, because we need to help people who are homeless, because they are homeless due to people like you, Jerry. No offence. I understand. You want an extra bit of money in the pocket. You want to have that thing. But at the end of the day, do you really want to be saying your tax is increased by 10% because, you were well an agent and you managed to get people to become homeless because they were high exorbitant rates, and because now they don't have no money because they used their savings, all the savings they had to pay for the rent. They can't even put a deposit on a house. They can't do anything, and they can't do anything that might have saved them in the first place. Anything that would have saved them in the first place is now gone. And that's the thing, Jerry. This is the sort of thing. This is the issue. It's the same issue with loans, which we're going to be cracking down on. People cannot simply start offering, hedge funds, this sort of thing, where people are offering high risk loans where interest rates are massive, Jerry. We won't be allowing that, and I understand your concern, but that's the sort of thing. Well, I don't know. Well, I'm sorry, but your allotted time is up, so we're gonna have to move on. Okay, so a call just in from Louisa. Louisa is actually she's in from Mana. So hello, Louisa. Hey, so I'd like to just make you were saying there about hedge funds. Just a little point there. So what exactly is your government gonna do about hedge funds? Well, you see, Louisa, I'm gonna ask before you do this, before I begin this. Are you a hedge fund manager yourself? And please. When I say hedge fund, I mean that's a loose term. I'm saying hedge fund. Basically what I'm saying is everyone and anyone who offers loans outside banks, building societies, and credit unions, that sort of thing. Basically, anyone offers high risk loans, so high percentage payback loans. So are you a manager of any of those? I am, yeah. Well, you see, Louisa, that's the thing. Now, you might not understand this, and I understand it's difficult. It's difficult to understand something when it affects you negatively, to understand the positive things, because for you, there really are no positive things, because all you're losing is profits, and you might be landing up in prison if you continue to be acting the way you are. Basically, Louisa, what we're going to be introducing is a brand new thing whereby people who, I guess you could say, people who charge exorbitant rates and then try to collect the money using violent means will be put in prison for threatening someone. This is threatening someone for using violence in an attempt to obtain money. And unfortunately, because it doesn't matter if you actually owe the money, you're just invited to obtain it. So they're currently increasing that crime thing up to 3 years in prison. And then there's a year off because you actually are legally owed that money. But it's the 2 years is because technically, and there's an extra 6 months, if they were not aware of that money that you were owed, and then there's actually an extra 3 years added onto that for running a business where you do not inform people of the charges that they'll be brought. That actually, I don't really lose it. If you're renting small amounts of money, like I think that the cap we're setting is £2,000. So if you're going over £2,000 for an individual customer, then that's it. If you do not tell them about hidden charges, even if they're not hidden, I'm saying even if you don't tell them, if they are able to argue a case where you did not inform them about a charge, this doesn't mean it wasn't on an invoice, this doesn't mean it wasn't included, this just means that they didn't see it. If you don't say that you definitely confirm that they knew about this charge, then unfortunately you can go up to prison for 3 years, and that's extendable to 6 years for multiple offences. It also means that you're not allowed to run a business of this nature for life, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Louisa, we have to crack down on this sort of thing because, we can't have a society that you have when you see in America, where people are chasing down people for pittance, and half the time they don't even realise they don't even owe any pittance, they've already paid it. And this is the issue, Louisa. You need to be a little bit more accurate about these things, because if you're lending money and you're charging 10% interest, I mean, what exactly is the purpose of that? Because that's the sort of thing. Well, we're offering an alternative to a bank. Well, that's the thing, see, Louisa. You're offering an alternative to the banks, then set yourself up like a bank. Then you'll be fine, because under our rules, there's a bit of illegality. We aren't changing much when it comes to the rules for that sort of thing, but you are allowed to set yourself up like that, and just similar type of things like a bank, and then you're fine. And although I have to say the rules are a little stricter because you're not actually a bank. So anyway, sorry Louisa, we're going to have to let you go. Okay, so we got another caller in from Donegal, actually, so outside the country. So apparently you're interested in what's going on in Northern Ireland, are you? Oh yeah, I mean, I was here. I have relatives here, so I was here, and I began to see some of the measures you put in place, and I was wondering, are you socialist? Is your party socialist? Well, how would I put that? In a way, I guess you could say we are, but we're more Labour, like Labour. But obviously we're a little bit different to Labour. We've got stricter rules, and I guess you could say we also we offer more alternatives. So, for example, one of the things we'll be doing is if you don't you have to show from now on in this country, if you want to claim our social benefit, which we are actually increasing, by the way, if you want to have that, you're going to have to prove that you were looking for a job. This doesn't mean you got to an interview stage. This just means you have to tell us about businesses. Unfortunately, this is a message to all businesses, by the way. If someone is offering their services for a job, you can't just throw their application in the bin, because if you're found to not be filing that sort of thing, you can be found in contempt of the government's information there, and you can land up getting a fine of up to $2,000. So that's the thing. So if the person can say, well, I sent my application to this company, and if it's up to the standard that needs to be met, then you go, okay, you were looking for a job, you can continue here. Now, obviously, if it doesn't meet all the standards, which means if it doesn't meet all the qualifications you have, then you're not penalised, but what you will need to do, you're penalised if this is a multiple offence, but what you will need to do is given a free, this is no charge to you, free, there's a branch, all across the country, free place where you go in there and they will just do their CV with you. because just you tell them what schools you went to, what this and that, and they will present your CV in the best manner possible. If you don't have that, then if you don't have that multiple times, if you ignore that thing multiple times, then unfortunately you will land up unfortunately there. We'll also be removing the requirements for a property or being a property to claim social welfare. So anyone who's living on the street, they can now claim social welfare. That includes the dole. Okay, that includes the dole. So if you're on the streets, you don't need to fear that you won't be able to get the dole money. And the dole, by the way, is increasing for persons without a home. So persons with a home, unfortunately, may see a slight decrease in the amount of money they're getting, because we want to be able to say at the end of the day who exactly needs it more. You see, we're now having rent subsidies, so we're separating some of that money off from the rent subsidies. So if you're in a home at the moment, your dole money may go down, but you'll likely see an increase in the rent subsidies if you have rent subsidies. If you don't have rent subsidies and you're entitled to them, I would advise you to get them, because while obviously a lot of governments, what they do is they advertise in the public eye. They say, look how we're really good, look, we're offering all this sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, they don't want to spend any money. So if they really at the end of the day want to get rid, if they know that there's savings to me by just not telling people the things or trying to get people to forget, they will, And then if someone says, look, you're not doing any help, you say, no, we are. But the point is, we're not saying that, so we're saying, yeah, you can do that. So I guess you could say, at the end of the day, are we a socialist government? I guess you could say in a way, because obviously we are offering some certain things like that. We do want to tax a bit of the bigger companies. And, I guess taxing the rich is a thing that I guess we have. But people look at socialism as a bad thing because I guess people connect socialism with communism. And communism isn't always the most successful when it comes to the people. It's successful, but, not always when it comes to the people. But don't worry, that's not the sort of thing we're going to run here. We're not running a system whereby we have certain ideals. This is not a system where we just go, this is how it works. We're not doing any other way. No. This is the purpose of this show, so that you can talk with me and you can give me ideas. So, do you have any ideas for that? Well, I was just wondering, what about patriarchy? Patriarchy. Well, how like you said that 50% of your candidates were female, but not the other parties. So what I'm saying is, will you be putting any policies in place? Because currently, it's all well and good to say, your party isn't sexist, your party isn't racist, because your party matches up with the gender statistics, and also matches up with the color of people's skin statistics, and it also matches up with the statistics on people's sexual orientation and gender. What I mean by that is transgender and cisgender people. So you match up for that. But what about other people, other parties? Because they don't. If you look at a lot of parties, they're highly sexist, highly racist, and homophobic. So it's all well and good for you to say, look, our party's doing great, but your government isn't. The government isn't doing great. The other parties aren't doing great. So what are you going to do about that? Well, actually, that's a very good question. One of the main things that we'll be doing in that regard is that we'll be introducing a new thing. This might actually, unfortunately, politics, as you probably should know by now, it's a bit of a tricky thing, because it means that there are other people who just don't want to do things that are in politics, and they just don't want to do things. So at the end of the day, we may have a bit of difficulty in that. But what we want to introduce is a new policy whereby your party has to have at least 49% female candidates. It also means that you have to have, when you're putting up ministers and when you're putting up things, and if you're in power, if you get to the power stage, you have to have at least 50% female your party ministers. So obviously that only works if you're in power. It doesn't work, obviously. I'm not saying, I'm saying, that only works if you're actually in power. So that's my point. Yeah. Well, what about private businesses? Obviously that's a lot easier to do. Mainly because, see, here's the thing. sometimes in politics, there's a thing called voters and there's a thing called politicians. And once you've got the right politicians that are in power, because of the voters, or just because of the party that they're putting, the candidates are putting forward, what happens is that the people who are in power sometimes only care about themselves. So it means that you can actually, move the country in a good direction simply by saying that you can do this. Because you see, here's the thing: what I want to introduce is a brand new thing whereby businesses will have to employ at least 49% of women. Otherwise, they will be breaking a law. And what the law will mean is that the business can be penalised for up to £1 million, and the person who's responsible can go to prison for up to 3 years. 3 years? Yeah. So if you are running a business and you don't employ women for 40%, then you can go to prison for up to 3 years. So that's a little bit of advice. You can obviously, there's an issue, which is you can appeal. So there's that. But mostly, that we don't expect many appeals to actually be successful. But anyway, that's the case. So thank you for your question. Next up, we've got David in Belfast. So David, hello. My question is this: your government said that you do something about the case of how we didn't really vote for Brexit. Like we voted really against it, and then we were even lied to. So what I'd like to say is, would you be considering that we might be able to vote again? Would you be supportive of that? Well, David, actually, that's not something we've really considered, but we've realised that we were tricked and we were forced into this, but what we haven't really thought of is voting against it because we don't really have the power. But didn't you get the power given to you by the British government to regain your control? Well, yeah, we did that, David. Yeah, we did. But you see, that power is removable. What? Well, you see, that power is a limited power. They could still take control over us. They could still bring back indirect rule. So, well, yes, currently we do have the power. They could say, well, no, and then take control, and naturally we wouldn't have any power at all. And then, there wouldn't be much of a democracy, wouldn't they? Well, yeah, but I am saying is, would you support it if the British government allowed that? Well, yes, David, we would support that mainly because if the voters want it, then that's what we want. And I guess you could say, if we just do a poll there, of the people listening, so just do a poll there. So how many people here would support a Brexit vote? So this, by the way, does not mean, you want to get rid of Brexit or you want to bring in Brexit or you want Brexit to stay, is what I better say, because obviously, Brexit is in force. But what I'd say is Brentry. I know that's a terrible phrase, but would you support that? Yeah, it seems like a lot of people would support that. I vote for it. Obviously, that doesn't mean that you would actually be doing it. It just means that we'd get a confirmation that that's what the people want. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we would be willing to support. At the moment, of course, there's a bit of an issue, which is that we don't really have the possibility to do that because no politician really wants to take that risk. Yeah, but why not? Well, I don't really know, David. It's a bit of an issue, I would agree. But, hopefully in the future they will. Anyway, thank you, and we'll go to the next person. Thank you for listening to this, a Smith Co. fiction podcast. Presented by Smith Co., recorded by Smith Co., and other things by Smith Co. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Northern Ireland's Alternative Timeline, a political show where we look at political things, policies, and other things in an alternative world. If you enjoyed this episode, you can look at other episodes, previous series, or seasons, or other content made by Smith Co. You can subscribe to the channel, or just you away. Go ahead. Be